Welcome, my friends, to the That's Ball Folks podcast video breakdown. I am your host, Josh Reynolds. I am extremely excited to be doing these alongside the Utah Utes Football Digest. Going to be reviewing and recapping the UCLA game, showing you what I liked, what I didn't like. We'll be reviewing film, taking a look at that, giving a little bit of a preview of the Oregon State game, and also checking out our pro Utes and the wonderful weekend that they had. Breaking it down from Britton Covey for the Eagles, Zach Moss for the Colts, as well as Matt Gay. Shout out Matt Gay, kicker for the Colts, breaking an NFL record. Before we dive into the recap, we have to talk about something I love and I think every Utah fan loves, and it's when they get started hot right out of the gate. We obviously know they did it against Florida with the bomb from Bryson Barnes to Money Parks, but they followed it right up again at UCLA with the pick six from Corinne Reed, which was fantastic. Look, we all love it. We want this to continue. Maybe it is a Rice-Eccles thing. People talk about home field advantage. Maybe this is the definition of it. Whatever it is, I hope it continues. I hope we take offensive shots really early and often, and I hope our defense can continue to make these big game-changing plays very early on and set the tone, because obviously we follow it from there and only good things are to come. Let's talk about Utah's defense for a second, because they are elite, truly elite. They held UCLA's rushing offense, which was ranked third in the entire country, to just 9 rushing yards. 9!
9?
To take a step back and look at the beginning of the season, we held Florida, who actually looks like a pretty good team now. Sorry, DJ and PK, I know you won't like hearing that. To just 11 total points. You look at Baylor, we held them to 13, Weber State 7, and UCLA 7. This defense is elite. We never let UCLA's quarterback get comfortable, and that was huge, obviously being a freshman on the road in his first Pac-12 game. But we sent different looks, different pressures, and packages his way all night. Didn't let him get comfortable, and you could tell. We ended the night with 7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and obviously that pick six, which was huge. We ended the final drive going sack, sack, sack. Tough to beat. Everybody says Sack Lake City. It's true. There was one specific drive that actually really bugged me on the defensive side of the ball. We had them pinned real deep into their own zone. It was at the 1. Had like a 3rd and 26. Ended up going prevent D. Gave up a huge chunk, and they go boom, 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 couple plays down, and they end up scoring their only touchdown all game. I understand going prevent D, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I'm really glad we didn't end the game with that, sending the house, sending a lot of pressure, and obviously making their quarterback feel extremely uncomfortable and putting the game on ice. We talk about Nate Johnson being the 3rd and 4th string quarterback, but we don't really talk about the defense, specifically the defensive line. To name a few names, you've got Simone Peppa, Junior Tafuna, Connor O'Toole, Van Fillinger. They're all out or limited. When they do come back, what do? You have to find snaps for these guys, because they're absolutely dominating right now, but obviously the starters are starters for a reason. What do? Of course, there's names like Cole Bishop, Lander Barton, Corinne Reed, but I want to talk about some other guys on defense, and the first one coming to mind is Jonah Ellis. What a freak. He is the nation's leading sack leader 4 games into the season. Kid from Idaho, wearing number 83 on his jersey, he's been an absolute beast. 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss against Florida, 3.5 sacks and 5 tackles for loss against UCLA. He truly is unbelievable. He looks like the guy who literally before the game just decided he was a tight end wearing number 83, and they're like, hey, we need you on the defensive side of the ball. We're pretty banged up. And he jumped in. It's exactly what he looks like. Obviously not the case. He wears number 83 because he followed his dad's footsteps, who also was a D lineman for Utah, ended up having a long, successful NFL career. Absolute stud. You have to find ways to continue to get him snaps, and majority of snaps. He's not the nation's leading sack leader by accident. It's obviously done on purpose. This dude is unbelievable. Another name I love is Logan Fano. Him and his brother both stepping into Utah and making their impact felt immediately. Logan's got 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery already in his career. Against UCLA, it felt like he was in pressuring their quarterback on every single dropback. He was everywhere. As I mentioned, him and his brother, just a breath of fresh air at Utah. Absolutely love having them both wear crimson. Also, how about Tail Johnson? Against UCLA, they moved him to free safety, put Vaki in at nickel. Whittingham said that that's more of Johnson's natural position and that we'll probably see him more there next year. But to be able to slide him around and move these guys around the defense is huge. He was flying all over the place. He's a very physical defender and really violent. Big hit guy, and I absolutely love it. He also has wheels. That dude flies and is all over the place. Huge impact from a young guy early on, and you love to see it. Words cannot accurately describe how I feel about this Utah defense. Truly unbelievable. I think I've said phenomenal, unbelievable, unreal, things like that. They all hold true. The defense is awesome. They are for real. The offense, on the other hand, let's talk about it. The million-dollar question that everybody wants to know: when will Cam Rising come back? He even warmed up before the UCLA game in full pads, I think getting a lot of fans' hopes up, but Whittingham said post-game, hey, this is just part of the process of him getting back onto the field. We had zero intentions and indications of him playing, and we made that decision on Thursday night. You look at Cam, he tore his ACL on January 2nd of this year against Penn State in the Rose Bowl, obviously marking 8 months, close to 9 since the injury. Utah's got Oregon State on Friday, followed by a bye, and then back home against Cal. If I were a betting man and had to put money on it, I would guess that Cam and Brent Keithy, who we haven't heard anything about, but did mention on the radio that he has selected his comeback date, I would bet that both those dudes are back at that home game against Cal. Since Cam has been out, we've been riding that quarterback carousel with Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson, obviously with Nate Johnson winning it out. Nate does a lot of things really well. He's extremely fast. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. Whittingham even said preseason that he's probably got the best arm in the entire quarterback room. He is a freshman, and with that come freshman mistakes, mainly ball security. We saw it multiple times in multiple games he's been in. He cannot hang on to that football. It happened a couple plays against UCLA. Again, they're freshman mistakes, right? You can't really blame him for those. You know that they're going to happen. What you can blame, however, is some of those play calls from offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig. Nate is a dual threat quarterback, right? He can be very dangerous with his legs. We know how fast he is. However, the UCLA game, it was very eye-opening because the play calls were brutal. Designed QB runs, handing it up off the middle over and over and over. They rarely let him air it out, and when they did, it was fantastic. It got to a point, we sit in the north end zone, me and my buddies, and we kind of got our little season ticket family around us. It got to the point where all of us kind of decided we would rather him make these freshman mistakes, throwing the ball downfield, rather than just handing it off and running these little 2-3 yard plays to end up punting 3 and out over and over and over again. They gotta let him be aggressive. When they did let him roll out and kind of air it out a little bit, he looked dangerous. He looked good. He connected with Vele a couple different times downfield for some big gains. Obviously, he had that nice little touchdown pass to Auburn, tight end transfer Landon King, who I think that's just going to be the first of many. But they never really let him air it out. They never let it fly. And I honestly like him getting in space. I like him rolling out. He makes good decisions. I would rather do that where it gives him the option to actually use his legs, but possibly beat you with his arm as well. I would imagine that this happens a lot more on Friday. Whittingham has talked about it and about the playbook, right? Cam Rising knows the playbook. He's got 100% of it. With Nate Johnson stepping in, he knows a little bit, just adding on more and more every week. He doesn't know the full playbook yet. His last quote, I believe he said he was about 75% of the playbook, which makes you feel good. Again, approaching whenever Cam does decide to come back. Whittingham mentioned that they are splitting snaps in practice this week leading up to it. However, I fully expect Nate to get the go again on Friday, and hopefully we open up this playbook a little bit more where they give him the chance to air it out because we liked what we saw last week. Let's be honest. If Nate can hold down the fort until Cam comes back, that is an extremely successful freshman season. Truly, an awesome campaign. The fact that we are sitting here 4-0 with all of our injuries is another massive win. Now, speaking of injuries, we got a little banged up against UCLA. Still don't know details about it, and we probably never will because Whittingham doesn't talk about it at all. But Jaquindon Jackson went out with what looked like an ankle injury early on in that UCLA game. Whittingham said post-game that, hey, we don't really know about these injuries until a couple days later. That's when they really manifest themselves. He didn't return, and Jaden Glover kind of stepped in and gave us exactly what we wanted to see. He shouldered the burden. He took the majority of the snaps. And all things considered, I mean, we ran the ball about 90% of the time. I actually really liked what I saw. Glover carried the ball 25 times for 86 yards, even had this nice little 17-yard grab from Nate Johnson. But I will say, I love Glover, but not having a dynamic player out of the backfield like we did in Micah Bernard is going to hurt us. Bernard was that guy. Even having a Jalen Dixon who can kind of come around on those end-around swoops, that's huge as well. Yes, we do have Mikey Matthews. We do have Money Parks who can somewhat fill that Jalen Dixon role, but I'm talking out of that backfield. And losing Bernard is going to hurt us more and more as the season goes on. I think we're more than we realize. Rumor has it, too, he got hurt on one of those Lime scooters. Brutal. Anyway, overall, I was extremely impressed with Jalen Glover this weekend. He also had an unbelievable blitz pickup. Couldn't find a clip of it. I know those of you watching this, you know what I'm talking about. Put his body on the line, ended up saving a sack. It was fantastic. I imagine we'll see a big dose of Jalen Glover again with the short turnaround this week. Hopefully Jaquinnon can get healthy and come back soon. All things considered, we are currently sitting at number 10, ahead of some of the most winningest programs in history of college football. Notre Dame off a heartbreaking loss, Alabama, LSU, and Oklahoma. Unbelievable. We have come a long way since joining the Pac-12. Our depth is phenomenal. And speaking of Pac-12, we currently have teams sitting at 7, 8, 9, and 10. Unbelievable. I say it on every single one of my podcast episodes, but every week that goes by, it just makes me more and more upset at how well the Pac-12 is doing. Larry Scott, this is all your fault. Burn in hell, my friend. Thank you for nothing. We'll end this breakdown with a little bit more of a positive note, and that is the Utah Utes who dominated the NFL this weekend. We'll start at the top with Zach Moss. Now the running back for the Indianapolis Colts had another fantastic week this week. 30 carries, 122 yards, 2 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. This marks Zach's second great week in a row with the Colts, leading them to a comeback win against the Baltimore Ravens. On the same Colts team, Matt Gay, our former kicker, unbelievable talent, became the first kicker in NFL history to make 4 50-yard kicks in a single game. He hit the game-tying field goal to send it into overtime and then hit the game winner in overtime. I miss having a solid kicker like that, which we do in Cole Becker. We just need him to get healthy again. And we will end with my guy, Britton Covey from my Philadelphia Eagles, had over 100 total yards in return, including a career best and career long 52-yard return that set Philly up for fantastic field position. Few things I love more than seeing Covey succeed, especially in a town like Philly. Again, I'm a huge Philly sports guy, and those of you not familiar, Philly is not known for their loving attitude towards players who kind of struggle. Covey hasn't even struggled. He's been one of the top 5 return guys in the entire league dating back to halfway through last season, but ultimately, they just haven't really given him a fair chance. It was wonderful to see the entire timeline on Twitter change their tune and give Covey the love that he deserves. It was awesome. The dude is clearly loved by his teammates. You can see they just mob him after he gets there. And then the clip, obviously, of Sirianni just screaming, pumped out of his mind for that fantastic return. Just goes to show, you put some dudes in there who will actually block for him. That dude's lateral agility and quickness is unmatched. Good for you, Cov. Fantastic. That's all I've got. Hope everybody enjoyed this little breakdown. Again, pretty quick. This is my first one of these, but I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully, we'll have another good breakdown and a good positive breakdown. Moving to 5-0 against Oregon State this weekend, and then leading into that bye week. Man, we need it. More than any other team in the country, I can almost guarantee you that. Again, thank you for listening. Go ahead, feel free to like, subscribe, review, do all that fun stuff. Shout out my guys at the Utah Utes Football Digest for letting me join here. And that's all I've got for you. That's ball, folks. Go Utes.